So babies, I'm here telling you that 2013 is what they'd call a very prophetic year, a lot of fulfillments coming into being. For myself personally, it's been real tricky business since the advent of the new year, actually since the 21st, you know. A lot of people think nothing happened and they're just going on their merry way, and we're still stuck in the three-dimensional money paradigm piece of shit. But babies, it's a happening. We're transitioning in ways you couldn't even have imagined, but somebody did, because that's the way we're doing it. I like to call it the Koyote Way, you know. It kind of sneaks up on you. It's not too readily apparent until it's already there. And that's probably the way it's got to be for most of us, because, you know, shoot, there's only so much preparing you can do. And when you've lived in this fixed situation where it's every person for themselves, and, you know, it's been dog eat dog, but dogs behave a lot better than that. And to make that shift to a paradigm where sharing is the #1 application. It's the immediate thought that comes to your mind when you run into somebody that you know. You know, how can I share with this one? What are we sharing today? You know, it's a complete shift. It's a 180-degree turnaround. And that's what we're heading into, even as I sit here on the 4th of January in 2013, as they call it. That's where we sit. That's where we are, right on the cusp. I like to compare December 21st to riding on a roller coaster up to the top of that first big hill. And then it kind of chugged, it kind of stuck there for a little bit, and then it started on its way down. And now we're just picking up some momentum going into 2013. New Year's Day was a breakthrough day. It was a pretty amazing time. For myself personally, I was like off in la-la land dealing with some major energies here, and babies, I couldn't even hardly communicate with anybody. But the spirits, yes. Everyone else out here physically, worldwide, you know, I couldn't do it at the moment. There's just too much going on. And it's right down to life and death again. You know, it always is. You know, when you're an edge player, as I call myself, you know, it's just a coyote, you know. Somebody wrote in and asked me how I got my coyote name, you know, how, if there was a story behind it. Well, of course there is. There always is, you know. I was born this little seed, S-E-E-D, seed, of a little sprout of a child over there in Utah many years ago. And, you know, because somebody intuitively knew that I was a seed that was about to be planted, they gave me that name to start with. K-E-R-N, Kern, like Kern County in California. And that was my original name. And, you know, I never liked it. It just didn't wear well on me, you know. It just didn't sound good. It didn't sound poetic coming off the lips and tongue, you know what I mean? So I had never been satisfied with my name, and so I had used my initials for a good share of my life, you know. And then one time in the day of my dawning, way back there when I was about 30, my name just changed. I moved into Oregon, Southern Oregon, and people started calling me Pete and Peter. So I just went with the flow and let that be my name. I don't know how it started. I think there was this old drunk used to come in my little second-hand store there in Cave Junction, Oregon. And I think he was the one that started it. You know, he couldn't remember the name. Who could? You know, or the initials. So he, especially in his intoxicated condition. So he called me Pete, you know, and it just stuck, you know, and that's where the Peter came from. The coyote, and it reflects an energy, an ancient energy. The name has significance and meaning and purpose, and you know, that's why it's been attached to me in this way. So that's how the first part of that name came into being. Now, when I was like a young man, of course, I was a handful and didn't get along with the reality too well, so I had a little trouble with the law when I was a kid. As I got a little older, I outgrew that real fast, thank goodness. But as a result of all that, at 17, I found myself hitchhiking around the West with a couple of my friends, my buddies, and we were just working, you know, the ranches, bucking bales and stuff like that, you know, and we got this idea we should go up to Jackson Hole and go to work at one of them there resorts up there on the lakes, you know. It's a beautiful place to be in. It'd be a great place to spend the summer, and there's a lot of cute girls that work there, you know. So we were kind of headed that way after we'd finished our last job bucking bales, and one thing led to another, and we wound up in the town of Jackson, Wyoming, which was a pretty small town at the time, not the megalopolis that it is now. You know, rich people's paradise now. But anyway, then it was just a little tourist town out there in the middle of nowhere, kind of a gateway town, gateway to not just the Grand Teton National Park, but the Yellowstone Park too, because you can go right through one into the other, you know. Beautiful drive. Awesome country. But anyway, we're up there. And we're in Jackson, and, you know, we did a little drinking and spent all our money. And then it was cold, like July, but it was still cold, you know, at night, probably about 30 degrees or so. And so we wanted, you know, someplace warm to sleep, but lacked of funds. And so I seen this local cop sitting there on the parked by the sidewalk, and I just walked up and asked him if it'd be possible to have a free night in the jail, you know, just to get a warm place to sleep. And he says, I'll tell you what, boys, I'll give you 30 of them free nights if you don't get your asses out of this town right this minute. You get to the edge of the town, I'll give you 10 minutes to be hitchhiking out of here. And like, wow, well, okay, that's the way it is. So we headed for the edge of town. You know, we didn't have sleeping bags. We weren't too well equipped. We had some clothes in duffel bags and suitcase kind of things, you know, and that's the story of my life a lot. But anyway, so we start hitchhiking. Midnight, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Hell, you ain't even gonna get traffic then. I mean, that's a tourist highway. You know, we're going north into Grand Teton National Park. But doggone if a Jeep didn't come along and pull up and stop, and us three piled in there, and they took us out there about 30 miles further into Jackson Park. But they're river runner guys, you know, and so they're going off down some little dirt road down to the river out here in the middle of nowhere, and that's where they drop us about 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, in sagebrush country, you know, and it's cold, babies, it's cold. So we walk up off the road about 100 yards back into the sagebrush and commenced to building us a little fire, you know, gathering up the sagebrush and burning. That'll keep you warm, babies, I tell you. Sagebrush is a handy, but you got to be careful, of course. You got to build yourself a fire ring and a little pit. You got to make sure your perimeter's clear, so if any of your doggone ashes get loose, man, don't start a fire. You know what I mean? You got to, you know, you use some intelligence about it, you know. And I'm a creative young mountain man already, so I'm thinking that I can do that. So that's what I do. Hey, microphone, stand up here and do your job. Cut that out. Oh, so we got this little fire going, and we're just starting to get warm, and I see this pair of headlights coming from the north on the highway. And sure as hell it comes down and turns off and comes up through the sagebrush right toward us. Here is a park ranger. You boys got a permit for that fire? Well, no, sir. We got stranded out here, buddy, and we're just trying to stay warm. Well, you're going to have to put out that fire if you ain't got a permit. Man, I couldn't believe it, you know. But this son of a gun made us put out our fire and bury it down and promised not to do another one or he'd go put us in jail too. You know, everybody wanted to put us in jail that night. Just because we was being vagabonds, young vagabonds. Oh, geez. So, like I said, we didn't have blankets or sleeping bags, so we just put on all the clothes we had. You know, I think I had 3 pairs of Levi's and 3 shirts on, you know, plus a t-shirt and that. And that managed a little warmth, you know, and we kind of huddled together and, you know, lay alongside each other for warmth and just used our suitcases for pillows. Mine was a hard case. It wasn't the greatest, but it got us by. And then, you know, that guy said, that ranger said when he drove off that he'd be watching us, so we didn't dare build another fire. You know, out there, if you got binoculars, you can see 100 miles if you're in the right place. So anyway, we left the fire out and just waited for daylight because we knew it'd be stupid to go down to the highway and try and go anywhere. And we just huddled down there and tried to stay warm and not notice the cold. And pretty soon the coyotes come. And I hear them circling around us. They're not making any noise just yet. And then they start to sing. And it's some of the most beautiful music I ever heard. Must have been about a half a dozen to a dozen of them, who could tell. But they circled us throughout the night and kept us safe and actually managed to get a little bit of sleep listening to them sing. And that night I realized later was kind of my initiation into the coyote clan. And I got the protection of the coyote. You know, the thing that always saves old Wile E. Coyote when his Acme machines blow up on him. I got that kind of protection there. And that's where, you know, I was kind of adopted into the coyote clan. We had some communication, of course, that night with the animals as they circled us. And it was, you know, a little scary at first because I wasn't used to animals being that close to me. I was learning. I was gaining ground there. I mean, you know. And it was sweet. After a while, it just kind of settled in, you know. And of course, I didn't adopt a name until years later. I was using it as a pen name, you know. And when I was going through one of my serious transitions, I think I was like 42 or so, spirits just came to me and said, you know, that's your name. You might as well use it. So I hyphenated it onto my, hey Angel, I hyphenated it onto my family name. Let me get this cable out of the way. We'll just move this microphone over here, baby, and you can get up there on the blankie and be nice and safe and warm and doggone microphone. There we go. Alright, microphone set, Angel set, and that's how I came into, but it went right along with transitions. I think names reflect your general character as you're going through things, the different stages you go through in life. So when I was young, I really was like a seed, and I sprouted kind of wildly, you know, and started going off in all these different directions. So that seed name was the perfect name for me to have, you know. But as I got a little older, I became more of a happy-go-lucky, searching and season kind of guy, and partied my way through this reality, you know, believing in the ideals that I was born with, man. You know, I never let them go. I just, peace, love, and happiness was my ultimate concern, you know, and it came first in this life, the search and seizure of that. Not second, not third, not after money. And money was a secondary consideration with me. So as a result, I didn't always have a lot. You know, there were times in my life where I did okay, but it just wasn't my focus, you know, and never has been, never will be. You know, it's not the kind of paradigm I like to be in. It's not the kind of thing I like to employ. But I could sure as hell do it creatively now if I had a nice chunk. So you never know until that stuff finally is out of our way, until it finally totally fails us and goes away. Well, maybe I should have a little bit, because I've got some plans underway. This little coyote medicine show. I call it Coyote Medicine Show just for fun, because that's life. That's the way we've chosen to do it, the Coyote Way. You see, that's how I chose to live my life, was the Coyote Way. And when I was 17, I was inducted into that Coyote clan, because I was already living in it anyway. So I was born a coyote, for heck's sakes. One of my great-great-grandmothers came to me and revealed herself at one point, and she was a coyote of the Coyote clan. She was a native, you know. So it's funny how the names all kind of fall together, you know, at just the right time in your life. And then you start to realize their historical significance, and they begin to reflect. And as I got into my 40s, I became this Peter Coyote character, you know, this Grandpaw Koyote character. I was a grandpa when I was 42. I wasn't called Grandfather Coyote until like I was about 45, 46, something like that. That's when people started calling me Grandfather Coyote, and I lightened it up and put it Grandpa, because I do a lot of healing with my hands, you know. And they convey energies and receive energies. They're like little antennae, you know, just like my whiskers are. And so I kind of like my hands. I think they have a gentle touch. And so I call them grandpas. So naturally I'm Grandpa with the W on the end, because that kind of softens it up, you know. I don't have much business with authority figures, and I don't want to be one myself. I'm just kind of here to help matters along. And in the present moment of this journey, well, babies, it's been difficult to the extreme. The Coyote Way is biting at me once again, but in a soft sort of way, you know. I picked up an energy when I was a kid. I've talked about it a little bit before. Through what some would call ritual abuse, and at least that was the illusion that was planted in my head at the time. Who knows what actually happens here? Hard to say, because there's so many levels to it. So that's just one level. But anyway, so I had this colored energy in me, this dark energy, this heavy weight, you know, this shock trauma thing, this rage that came about because of it, and it made me an unruly child. It took me years to learn how to manage this, you know, and it was only in my 40s when I finally started getting a good handle on it. I mean, I kept myself out of trouble somehow. After I got past that year of 17, I didn't get in any more trouble. I, you know, got lucky. I got the natural protection that I needed, and, you know, got married and disappeared for a while from the eyes of the law, you know. So then I managed to keep myself relatively clean after that, you know. Not that I didn't do a few squirrely things here and there, especially when you're out trucking, you skirt the law a little bit. It's just part of the job. But I was never, again, in active resistance in a criminal sort of way to the paradigm that was. I mean, I still naturally despised it, but I also had my ideals and my spiritual journey, which, you know, really began to ripen into place in my later 20s and early 30s. And when I hit 40s, that's when I became the Coyote, Grandfather Coyote, and you know, started applying a lot of this wisdom I'd learned through all this edge plan. So we're in a dynamic time right now that's just about like it was in my 40s, when they really started ringing my bells and connecting me up with the spirit realm so I could experience the reality of it and share it with people. Well, we're kind of in a time like that now. As we're going into this new paradigm, the energies are shifting. Everybody's feeling a little tension, but I want you to know, all you got to do is relax and let this thing flow through you. The energies are strong right now, you know, and they're affecting everyone. Even you zombieites out there that have totally turned it off, you're feeling it. You don't know what it is. There's an edginess, but you're feeling it. You know, everybody is. And as a result, because it feels like unknown turf. It kind of is. Everybody's a little edgy, a little bit fearful, you know. We got past the end of the world and it didn't destroy us, but everybody's kind of sensing that things are falling apart. The economy sucks, you know. And everybody's having a tough time of it financially. Well, not everybody, but a good share of us, you know. And the squeeze is on the little people, you know. They want to put us out of business, babies, and it's just not going to happen. We ain't going to let it happen. It's not our paradigm. It's not our place. You know, so since the 21st, things have been rolling into place energetically. Lots of huge changes for those that are intuitive and tuned in, and lots of anxiousness for those that don't quite get it. But especially now into this new year. I spent most of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day traveling through the land of life and death again. And I've made a certain peace with that death. And I've nearly transitioned it. But I'm going to need some help to get on through this, because we're all in it together. And, you know, it wouldn't hurt for some of you to consciously apply your love towards old Grandpa Coyote here and keep me rocking and rolling, you know. And because what I kind of promised you on Christmas Eve is still in motion. And we're still working on the life and death thing and the reptilian question. So babies, we're pardoning ourselves for everything that is, and everything that looked like it might have been wrong, and all the nastiness we've done to one another in the name of love. Oh my God. You know, we're pardoning ourselves. We're letting go. And because we can let go of that judgment on ourselves, then we can let go of the death that's the reward for that judgment. We can completely turn this around and go on living forever and ever. You know, but in an entirely different form, though it's still human, and it's still this cadaver that you're in right now is a part of it. It changes, of course, dynamically as you grow. It changes to reflect your true character, your true person. Same way that sometimes names change as you go through your stages in life. You might wear a different name with each stage because each one means something different, and you're not that person you were before. That's become a part of the composite person that you are. You see how that works? So people, let's put our hearts together. Let's open up. Let's love this feeling of death and show it that the heart is stronger than that. That it doesn't have to accept death as its ultimate paradigm, its ultimate blessing. So what's really happening here is pretty off the charts. And then it's time for us just to settle down into it and be it. Love it. People like myself can kind of pull the weight. And because we're symbolic, we can pull energies from others and carry them. Because we're built a little more durable than some are. But we can only go so far with it. Until the paradigm has to open up, the heart of the people living here, in other words, have to open up and go along with it. And say, yeah, that's a reasonable idea. Because if we can eliminate the fear of death, there's nothing else to be afraid of. If that no longer happens, if that's not even an option, if we've shifted our consciousness far enough into the reality in which we truthfully live, that we call spirit, well then, that's our natural reward. We no longer need to die to go experience our home, our paradise, our place of rest and recuperation, where the love is there all the time. Because that paradigm becomes this paradigm. And so that door to death is closed, and the dead shall be living right here with us. And we'll be seeing and talking to them. A lot of you are already. The veils are thinning rapidly. So extend your old love here to Grandpa Coyote and those few that are like me. And let's push on through, babies. Our holiday's just around the corner. And pardon me if I don't communicate as much as I normally do. It's just because I'm going through it, babies, and I need some time to reassemble. So we're getting it right this time, and we're not going to have the rug ripped out from under us like we've had before. Humans, the heart consciousness of humanity, is what dictates the flow here. It's what controls and regulates it. The entire mechanics of this paradigm shift, which are so huge we can't even imagine them, are contained and controlled in this human heart. That's our place of being. That's our place of worship. And the worship is of life itself, the beauty of creation, the God nature within that, the Great Spirit, the heart of harmony and love, which trusts life enough to let it go as far as it has here, off the beam, just so it could learn its lessons and move on. And like how some of us among us carry the weight for many, well, same thing for humanity. We're carrying the weight for humanity, for many, across the universe and beyond. We've chosen to do this because we were sturdy enough beings to handle it, while others weren't. That's why I call them wussies sometimes, but I don't mean anything disparaging. It's just a matter of capability, that's all. So, humanity, each and every one of us, especially those that have lived in darkness, are frickin' saints, over and over again, for what we've been willing to do to ourselves and endure ourselves through. Put up with horrendous, heartless bullshit. And let this paradigm get so wickedly corrupted, it's just off the charts, man. Yet knowing underneath it all, as all this is going on, that that's just an illusion we've allowed ourselves to be in. A game we're playing with ourselves to teach ourselves something about ourselves. And so the harm we've done is negligible, no matter how severe it seems. We created a kind of synthetic paradigm in which to live it, so the energy of it was contained in a certain place. Others can experience it from a distance, but they can't come into it and be it. We had to live it out as humanity, and it's part of our soul progression. I'm sure you understand it underneath it all. That's why there can be peace. That's why there can be an end to death, which means an end to war, because war is just killing. And if you can't kill, there's no war. Nothing to fight against. Nothing to fear. Babies, are you brave enough to take this step with me? Let's get it on. Rock and roll.